friends, those I haven't met, I'm Rabbi Mark Van, and the founding rabbi of a congregation called Beth Torah in Overland Park. Be officiating. Jewish services generally consist of a few readings, a couple of psalms, and interment. And later on, I'll say something about participating in the burial, because in our tradition, it's best to be accompanied to the grave by those with whom we shared life. And clearly, you're the ones who shared life with Harriet, and so it's appropriate for you all, if you choose, to participate in putting some earth on the grave. But I'll announce that at the time. We're going to start with a reading about remembrance. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. These words, written by a Jewish sage by the name of Ben Sirach, and in Christian tradition, known as Ecclesiasticus. Do not fear death, we are destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived and with all who ever will be. Bewail the dead, do not hide your grief, do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory rest, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest better than constant sickness. Seek not to understand what is too difficult for you. Search not for what is hidden from you. Be not overoccupied with what is beyond you, for you have been shown more than you can understand. As a drop of water in the sea is a grain of sand on the shore, our person's few days when measured in eternity. The good things in life last for limited days, but a good name endures forever. You know, the contemplation of death and of loss has been a subject of human concern for our entire history. And most particularly, people have read for words of consolation the contemplations that we know as the Psalms. And among the 150 Psalms, the one most often referred to, most often read, most often thought about in this regard, in these kinds of circumstances, is the 23rd Psalm. So if you'd like, and you know the 23rd Psalm, please feel free to join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Paul will say some words in memory of his mom.
Well, thank you all for coming and enjoying our family. You know, this time of grieving, and my mom passed away on Thursday, and kind of reflecting, and more of grieving, it was more of a kind of a celebration with our family, especially with my mom, of how lucky, fortunate, or blessed, however your ideology is coming from. But my mom and I, we had worked together for 23 years. In 1978, I started a business, and in January of '79, I told my mom, I said, hey, I need a little help. just part-time, you know. She was working for a temp service. Well, that part-time ended up being 23 years. And actually, my mom was very instrumental in our business. And my wife posted on Facebook, and I just would like to read this. She said, "Harriet treated me as a daughter for 44 years. She was a wonderful grandmother, and she was instrumental in the growth of our business. Rest now, and thanks for being mom and grandma." The nice thing with my mom that she was before her time as far as looking beyond the differences. I was raised Jewish, Vicky's was Catholic, mixed marriage, and you go back, we've been married 36 years, and 36 years ago, that was a pretty tough deal for both sides, but actually both sides of the family learned to look at the similarities instead of the differences. And the stories, as I was reminiscing over these last couple of days, was just so comical and funny. We would celebrate Hanukkah at our house with my in-laws and Vicky's family and my parents, and my mom was so accepting. And then they would celebrate Christmas with my in-laws. They would go to my son's bris. They would go to the baptism of my parents. I mean, it sounded so crazy. What's really crazy is the epitome of craziness and acceptance, which we need to learn today. My mom, being so accepting other people, was in our family when they talked to my Bubba, Orthodox, and she actually attended a Christmas party at my in-laws. My mom was always the quiet one that I never really knew. A lot of people didn't really know what she was doing behind the scenes. And, she wasn't this special person, but she was one of these people who just kind of went through life. And one of the things, a few years ago, I was at, I forget, Walmart or Target or somewhere. And we started in the insurance business and then led on to the lending business. And this person came up to me and said, "Hey, introduced himself and said, is your mom still alive?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Let me tell you, I'd come in there and your mom would lecture me and she changed my life." And I go, "What?" Rabbi Harold Kirshner wrote a book, Living a Life That Matters. And sometimes we go through life, and my mom would go through life, and I hear all these things that I didn't know that she did and was instrumental in having an impact on other people. And in fact, I don't even know if she even realized that. But some of the things that I reminisce as far as the fun and times and the good times and the comical times, that when we started, she had an old Underwood typewriter, a manual typewriter, and the office that we worked together at, it was like a bowling alley lane. It was 10 feet wide, 50 feet deep, and we had a gas heater, and we had to turn it off at night because it was an open flame. So in the morning we'd turn it on. Well, in the morning, of course, the toilet was frozen, and when Mom went ahead and started typing, she had to put her gloves on. So here she is, it's freezing, and she's typing in her gloves with her hat on, and I think, she would type like 150 words a minute, so I think she probably went down to 120 words a minute. But the thing is that this is a picture in the early days of the team where Mom, by the way, that part-time ended up being full-time, never took a vacation, never took a break, and I felt bad, well, but you know what? Those were the happiest days, the happiest 23 years, and looking back. And so, what maybe I thought was, gosh, Mom, why don't you do this? Why don't you take a vacation or something? But that's not what you wanted to do. And that's another lesson is that sometimes we think we should change people when actually people don't need to be changed. They go their own journey and so forth. We try to take our values, and that's the lessons of what Mom taught me, you know. But this is, we have, if any of you know the company now, this is really the founders, the core of the company. There's my mom, and then when I took this picture, we graduated from the Underwood typewriter. We got her an IBM with the ball on it. Remember this IBM with the ball on it? And then this is me. I haven't changed, of course. This was the first employee that we had. This was, she had worked for us for about 17 years. And this lady had worked for us 18 years until she retired. And this is where our third office was. And so this is the founding, I'm not going to say founding fathers and mothers. Actually, to be honest with you, all these ladies were my mom. My mom was my mom, okay? But when my mom was stepped out, and these other ladies were my mom. Put your stocking hat on, you know. I mean, it was crazy, you know. But one of the things is that talking about funny thing. Like I said, we started out in the insurance business, and one day my mom said, "Hey, Paul, listen to this letter." And she starts reading about this claim this guy's turning in. He said, "Someone broke in my house, took all my furniture and my appliances and all this." And then it goes on, and he says, "But I know who took it. My neighbor is having a garage sale, and all my things he's selling." and these are the things, like, one other story is that we had gotten a letter. A person had a auto insurance with us, and he said, "I need to cancel my auto insurance because I won't be needing it between 5 and 10 years." He was going to be incarcerated, but he was nice enough to let us know what was going on. So, anyway, I'm not going to make this very long, but just wanted to put some things that were the highlights here. You know, my mom, no matter what I wanted to do, she always believed in me, and she always stood by me in my most challenging times. And during the last 13 years, my dad retired and stayed home and took care of my mom. And looking back in retrospect, and Vicki and I were talking about this, I was kind of wondering who was taking care of who. And at times, it seemed like they needed each other. And that's another lesson that, you know, I learned from my mom is that we kind of, what you see doesn't always appear to be what you actually think of what you're seeing. So, you know, she taught me being respectable, being honest. She taught me a lot of lessons. Mom ended up in hospice, and the thing is, it was her decision, and this was the last real conversation I had with my mom, is that she was in the hospital, and she's basically, you know, just did not have the will to go on anymore, and as far as the procedures that she needed, the result would have, maybe it would have extended her life a month, maybe not, and she should know, you know. And so it was in one evening, and I said, "Well, Mom, why don't you have dinner and get a good night's rest?" Because she had a little dementia toward the end, and I said, "Then in the morning when you wake up, if you feel the same way, then okay." And so next morning, she woke up and did not change her mind. And so, you know, it's where that's Mom's decision, and so that's what I did, because that's what we do for each other. Like she always stood behind me, so I always stood behind her, you know. The thing is that I always would say when I left, Mom, gave her a kiss and said, Mom, I love you. And she'd say, be careful. And, you know, finally, it was kind of was like a ritual thing. And so I wanted to leave my mom by saying, I love you and be careful. The last time I said to my mom, I love you, she didn't have the strength to say, be careful. And I would like to think she was still coherent, that she just couldn't utter the words, but I'll never know. But anyway, you know, I'll say my mom and I, she helped me really together build the business and taught me the good values and so forth. And the legacy is for me to carry on the business and to carry on the values with my son. And so, you know, basically I'd like to say, you know, even though my mom is not uttering the words, I love you, but I can tell my mom that, yeah, Mom, if she would utter those words, be careful. Yes, Mom, I definitely will be careful. Thank you.
Third chapter of Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, and a time for every experience under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to tear down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to grieve, and a time to dance. A time to throw stones, and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to discard. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. As I did when Melvin died, Paul and Vicki asked me if I'd say a few words. Frankly, after that beautiful eulogy, I really don't know that I have anything else that I have to say, but given that you asked me to say a few words, I'll add a little bit. But that was, thank you from the heart for those wonderful words. You know, some people feel very, very deeply. In their travels through life, people absorb enormous joy as well as enormous pain. For some, the path of life seems to travel through the tropics. You know, all sun, all warmth. For others, life may be experienced largely or entirely as the winter season, as though lived where the sun rarely shines and warmth disappears for most of the year. Some individuals seem to have a sort of guard up on their emotions. They don't get too low with the sad times. They may not get too high with the joys in life. They live lives of moderation in all things. But Harriet Silverman was of a different sort. She loved deeply. She felt the losses in life to the core of her being. Hers was a wintry life in many aspects. When Melvin died in 2015, I said this about their marriage of 64 years, which seems to me should be repeated with Harriet's death. Before leaving for Korea, Melvin met and married the love of his life, Harriet. They'd been married for 64 years, shared all their triumphs and their difficulties together. Melvin absolutely loved serving Harriet. True, he had her pay the bills and write the checks, but he took care of her needs, kept their home clean and orderly, took care of their laundry, although that was a schlep to the washer and dryer, made sure that all of Harriet's dietary needs were well looked after and cared for. Harriet was clearly Melvin's most important and constant priority in life. His love came not primarily through words, but through devoted activities for his wife and for his children. Harriet, Paul, and subsequently Vicky, and Emily, and Carrie. And Harriet's sole concern in life and constant focus was family. Paul, Vicky, Emily, and Carrie. When Emily died, it destroyed the core aspects of Harriet's life in some respects. But she continued with the constant help, with the constant support of those she loved, you, her family, who often placed Harriet at the very center of your concerns. Harriet really had two children. You, Paul, you understood your mom. You worked with her directly, as you spoke of so beautifully. You worked for more than 2 decades in that office, and you focused often on her needs. Clearly, you were the center of your mother's concerns, symbolized by that comment that you spoke so beautifully, be careful. My, what thoughts, what depth of emotion, I'm sure, was contained in this just 2 little words. 6 days a week. Wow. 6 days a week in the office, as you said. There's time together rather than just business. As Paul and Vicky were speaking to me, they said, well, you know, it was like family time when we were together. Paul said, I'm not so sure Mom was so concerned about business as with being here with me. Of course, Harry had these very good accounting skills. She set up procedures for the business that worked out really well. She was a skilled and helpful member of the work team and aided in building the business from the beginning. But it was family together. But Vicky absolutely had the status of daughter. I was so touched by the story of Vicky's concern for Harriet, that their wedding may not have gone off exactly as Harriet would have wanted. So Vicky went to Harriet and said something about it, and Harriet responded, a wedding is a one-day event, but a daughter I have always dreamed of will last a lifetime. And so it turned out. Vicky has been there for Harriet every step of the way, but particularly these last couple of weeks, with your beautiful, beautiful concern for her and staying with her all that time, as Harriet struggled between life and death. Vicky really did accompany Harriet on her last journey and made certain that she would not be alone. It's an extraordinary gift that we should all consider. A gift from daughter to mother. As Vicky said of Harriet, I adore her. Feelings were mutual, and the actions displayed exactly what that meant for each of them. A depth of affection that made living more meaningful for both. The blending of Paula and Vicky's families was really complete. I said Paula. I have a typo here. Paul and Vicky's families. I sort of had that electric. See? The blending of Paul and Vicky's families was really complete, including, as you spoke about, your religious expressions. Now, I have to tell you, Paul, see, I was a rabbi, which you said 35 years ago when these things were not as acceptable, so I am not saying today what I would have said then. Nothing stood in the way of assuring harmony between these two families. And isn't that beautiful? Vicky's story of her parents unnecessarily cautioning her that she should not, I gotta tell you, this is one of the funniest family stories I've ever heard. She not shame Paul's family. It's so cute, you know, telling us just how much her parents cared, okay, about Paul's folks and about creating harmony between the two families, particularly in regard to their different religious customs. I don't know that I've ever heard a story quite like that. The mixed marriage truly worked for both. And if you come from different ritual backgrounds, the truth of the matter is that you have shared values. And that's what's most important in creating a life of beauty and a life of sharing. So Christmas Eve was with Melvin and Harriet, and Christmas Day with Vicky's folks. Vicky's parents wrapped gifts in Hanukkah paper, Paul's parents in Christmas paper. Such symbolic expression, perhaps not critical on the surface. You know, so what? So it's paper, right? Wrap a gift. Who cares? But the truth is, it demonstrates how important this caring was for both sides of the family. And that's such a loving thing and goes so deep. how that symbolic expression comes through. And it means so much, it creates so much warmth. Harriet's kindness is extended to the business clientele as well. She was beloved by customers because she treated them so well, as people with dignity, rather than the poorest of society or simply as clients. She might give advice about how they could improve their lives, and each person knew that Harriet's sincere caring meant that she was truly concerned with their welfare. A diversion from this, I got on your website, guys. The fact that you have on there how people could avoid your services, it's extraordinary. Who does that? And I don't know, I just saw it as an expression of maybe I'm wrong about where it came from, but you know, such a lovely thing to say. Well, you really shouldn't have to come to us. Let us explain to you how you could do better in your life. What a beautiful thing. It would have been easy, for some it would have been natural, to be condescending to customers who after all come from a different place in life. But that was not Harriet's way. She treated people as she might have wanted to have been treated. She was totally down to earth and kind, lived with modest and a conservative life. So she and Melvin's mostly stayed at home. They never traveled, unlike Paul. Harriet cooked items. I wish I had had the salmon patties. Cheese blitzes from scratch. Apple strudel. Often there was chocolate to eat at home. Their activities centered around home and cleaning and making sure everything was as it should be. They watched TV, they read newspapers. In earlier years might go roller skating. But most important ever in Harriet's life was to be mother. To Paul, to Vicky, and grandmother to Emily and to Carrie. Instead of a birthday gift, Harriet might take Carrie out for the day and let him pick out his own gift, creating a really special day together. She was always thoughtful. Harriet's life would certainly be considered difficult from many people's perspectives. But she chose work and family to give ultimate meaning to her life, and in these she succeeded marvelously. To Vicky, to Paul, Carrie, you'll miss your mother and grandmother. Her life with you will remain as a blessing for many years to come. And you will live out that blessing and you will remember. May your fondness grow through the years. Your gratefulness for the love that you shared never abate. May the life of a righteous woman continue on as a blessing. Friends, we've reached that point of the service where we continue with some traditions. We'll go ahead and lower it to the grave, and then I'll ask you if you want to participate to go ahead and place some earth on the grave. We have to get that. Gentlemen. Atzor tamim pa'alo ki chol rachad mishpat el emunah ve'in avel tzadik v'yashar hu. Atzor tamim b'chol po'al v'yomar l'ma tifal. Hashalit b'mata v'ma'al Yimita Machayem Erit Sha'ol V'Ya'al. Hatzor Tamim B'chol Ma'aseh Miyomar L'ma Ta'aseh. Tzadik Ata Adonai Lamita L'Achayim. Asher B'yadcha P'Gadol Kol V'Chol. Chalil L'cha Zichronenu L'Chol. You want them off?
Yes, please.
That's okay. Yunai Necha Barachamim Aleinu Pekuchot. Ki L'cha Adon Harachamim V'Haslichot. God is sure, our immovable rock. All God's work is upright. Who could say, what is it that you do? The Eternal governs what is above and what is below, overseeing both the valleys of death and the heights of life. God is sure, our immovable rock. Who can say to God, what will you do? You are righteous in your dealings in both death and life, and every soul is in your trust. In the words of Job, Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yishem Adonai Mavorach. God has given and God has taken away. Praise be God's name. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Yatzar Etchem B'Tzalmo, V'zan V'chilkel Etchem B'Tuvo, V'hemit Etchem Badin, V'letah B'tochachem Chayei Olam. Baruch Atah Adonai Dayan HaEmet. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in your divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, who causes all of us to die, who implants immortal life within us. Praised are you, O Lord, the righteous judge. family, those who choose to put earth on the grave, this is the appropriate time. And the custom is to use the shovel and maybe the tip 3 times, or you could use your hand.